Hey there everyone, welcome back to Utility Sports. Really excited for today's video as we're going to dive into my award predictions for the 2025-2026 NBA season, which is coming up here pretty soon, pretty quickly. So if you guys are excited for the season as a whole, make sure to leave a like on today's video, subscribe to the channel for more content, and then also hype the video. That's a brand new thing here on YouTube. You can hype the video. It lets me know that you're enjoying the content here and you want to see it succeed. So thank you guys all again so much. Let's jump into that video preview here now. We're going to look at my top 3 candidates for each award. Of course, those awards are the MVP, Most Valuable Player, the Defensive Player of the Year award, Sixth Man of the Year, Most Improved Player, Clutch Player of the Year, which is one of the hardest ones to predict, of course, Coach of the Year, Executive of the Year, and then lastly, Rookie of the Year. I'm very excited for this video again, so let's jump into it here now with the MVP discussion. Who are my 3 finalists? That's what I'm going to share in each of these categories, and then I will also discuss and share who I think will ultimately win the award as well. The first and easy guess for a finalist is Nikola Jokic, a multi-time MVP, a constant triple-double threat night in, night out, and the Denver Nuggets did a lot this offseason to surround him with talent. They brought back Bruce Brown. They traded Michael Porter Jr. and a future first-round pick to Brooklyn to bring in Cam Johnson. And I think if you look at Denver specifically as a team, not only with some of their improvements to their depth, bringing in a backup big man as well, I think Denver is much better positioned to keep up in the win column this year than they did a year ago. Now, do I expect them to be within 4 or 5 games of Oklahoma City in the West? Probably not still. OKC is, of course, just a juggernaut powerhouse team. They won the NBA Finals this past year. They dominated the Western Conference this most recent season as well in terms of the regular season win-loss total, which partially led to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander winning the MVP. He had an awesome individual season as well, so that is in no way trying to diminish him. But it is very clear that Jokic, with a better supporting cast around him now, should be in a better position from the win-loss column for the regular season standings. And then, of course, we know what he's going to do from a production standpoint. Speaking on production, one of the best scorers in the entire NBA and one of the best scorers in recent NBA history, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, is going to be in the running as long as he's healthy again this season for the MVP. Reigning MVP, reigning Finals MVP. It was the year of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with the production he had, both in the regular season, the postseason, and then ultimately the level of team success that the Thunder had as well was just brilliant across the board. I think Shai's overall game, the mid-post scoring, the isolation play, the improvement as a drive and kick player to a certain extent as well, it's all really pushed Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to becoming this player that really no one expected him to become when he was traded from the Los Angeles Clippers to the Oklahoma City Thunder following his rookie season. My best friend is a Clippers fan, and he was devastated with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander being included in that Paul George trade. He wasn't even as worried about the draft picks, which was a majority of the discussion at that point in time. He was gutted by losing SGA, but even at the time, no one expected this from Shai. So he's definitely going to be in the MVP running again this year. And then my final candidate is, of course, Luka Doncic of the Los Angeles Lakers. We'll see if he's able to actually maintain a skinny play weight this year. Every summer it's look at Luka, he's getting skinny over in Europe. Here's the thing. I have to see it actually play out throughout the course of the entire season to fully, firmly believe it. But I do think, first of all, he's going to be motivated after everything that happened last year, getting traded in February, kind of the public smear campaign that the Dallas Mavericks had against him, and now having a full offseason to kind of adjust to playing in Los Angeles, being a member of the Lakers. They brought in a big man, DeAndre Ayton, who should at least help a little bit with their offensive production and screen game. I do think the Lakers are going to be a good team once again this year. If you had to ask me who 3 of the top 4 or 5 teams in the Western Conference are going to be, the Thunder, Nuggets, and Lakers are pretty safe bets. Obviously, the Rockets will be in there as well. But out of these 3, I do think the most likely to win the MVP award is Nikola Jokic, just given the fact that Shai is going to have a little bit of voter fatigue because he was the most recent winner. And the expectations are obviously going to be sky high for the Thunder as a team again this year, whereas Denver, with some slight improvements, you can see the record creep up a little bit. Jokic is, of course, going to be super efficient, super effective, so I think Jokic is the safe, easy guess here. But any of these three guys, I think, are obviously right there in that inner circle of who could possibly win the award this upcoming year. Which now leads us to Defensive Player of the Year. Of course, Evan Mobley won the award last year after Victor Wembanyama's season came to a halt, but Wemby should be back in the mix this year. Sounds like everything has gone well with his recovery, which is great to hear. We don't want anyone's career getting short, and we don't want any big what-ifs. We want players on the court healthy, and when Wembanyama is on the court healthy, he is just standalone, head and shoulders above, pun intended, better than everybody defensively in the NBA. His rim protection, rim deterrence, the amount of times 2-on-1s in transition, drives at the rim in the half court just go without shot attempts because he's just simply in or around the rim is incredible. And I just think this guy is so impactful defensively. The Spurs haven't even been able to build a good team defense around him yet. And his presence, his X-factor ability on defense is undeniable. I just think when you look at his overall growth, he took a big step from his rookie year to year 2. I think he's going to take an even bigger step going into season number 3. Honestly, dark horse MVP candidate as well. I was a little hesitant to put him into that mix just because the statistical production and the winning might hold him back just a little bit. I do think statistically he's going to be in that conversation, but you're also battling the other top dogs in the NBA. Luka is going to be a constant triple-double type of guy. Jokic will be a constant triple-double type of guy. And Shai, of course, could very likely lead the NBA in scoring again this year. So even though statistically Wemby might be in that same ballpark or even on par with some of those guys, the team wins might not be as high because the Spurs are still very young. Of course, you're factoring in the addition of Harper to the mix as someone who's going to be a high minutes per game player. Stephon Castle's only going into season number 2, and the Spurs' best player, Wembanyama, is only going into season number 3 of his career. So I think the Spurs very likely could be a playoff team, but I do think Wembanyama will win the Defensive Player of the Year award. Evan Mobley just won this most recent one. I thought it was a good vote. I don't think it was a great vote. I would not have voted for Evan Mobley to win DPOY this most recent season, even with Wembanyama ineligible. But I do think, again, Mobley, part of a really good team defense there in Cleveland. They have a lot of talent, and of course is such an integral part of what they do, both on offense as a pick-and-roll, short-roll guy, play out of the dunker spot a bit. He's expanded his range as well along the way. Mobley's an awesome player, an elite player, someone who's in the top 20, 25 players in the world, very likely. Now, I don't believe in player rankings too much. I just think it's kind of a futile exercise, but he's definitely in that conversation, an all-star plus caliber player, someone who night in, night out is a very great player to have on your team. He'll be in the mix again for DPOY this year. And then Draymond Green. I think if you look at the way that Golden State played post the acquisition of Jimmy Butler, of course the playoffs, very unfortunate that Steph Curry got hurt. I do think that they would have beat the Minnesota Timberwolves in the second round of the playoffs had Curry been healthy. But of course that is a what if. That's if this happened, then what? So it's difficult to fully say that. I don't know that for certain, but just based on how the first game of that series went and Curry's gravity, the necessity for him to be on the floor for Golden State to succeed throughout Steve Kerr's coaching career is undeniable. But I do think if you look at how they played, when they do have Jimmy, Steph, and Draymond on the floor, this team's really damn good. And I think Draymond specifically, with his ability to cover ground, which is really what the NBA relies on and requires right now. You look at what OKC was able to win with. You look at what some of these teams are trying to copy around the league. Houston, Atlanta to a certain extent. Golden State, obviously, with some of their high IQ players. Ground coverage, the ability to roam, make plays, switch, cover different areas of the floor quickly, in rotation. That's everything that the NBA calls upon and requires now with the spacing and pace of the game. And I think Draymond Green really embodies a lot of that as someone who's played as a small big man, has guarded out on the perimeter, and has taken on a bevy of different matchups night in, night out. One of the best transition defenders in recent NBA history as well. He's just an unbelievable impact player. He doesn't take the toughest assignment every night, but he fills and covers pretty much every single gap you could imagine. So I do think Wembanyama wins the award, but Draymond, Evan Mobley definitely could be in the conversation this year. When it comes to the sixth man of the year, I think this is one of those hot button topics. There are some obvious candidates. We'll see what happens, especially for Boston's starting lineup. But Payton Pritchard, the reigning sixth man of the year, could he still come off the bench? Now, obviously, they made some big shakeups to their roster. Traded Jrue Holiday to Portland. Traded Kristaps Porzingis to Atlanta. The Celtics look quite a bit different. No Jason Tatum this year as well because of his Achilles injury. So could Payton Pritchard be in the starting lineup and actually be a focal point player for them? I do think there's a very good chance of that. But right now, he is the odds-on favorite to win the Sixth Man of the Year award. Now, I think, again, those odds are pretty much based on last year. But if Payton Pritchard is coming off the bench full-time or for a majority of the time this year, we'll see what happens with him and Anthony Simons, assuming Simons stays in Boston. Pritchard is definitely going to be still a featured player when he gets in the game. So it's a very safe bet. Then we'll go back to a previous Sixth Man of the Year award winner the prior season to Payton Pritchard winning the award, and that is Reid, who actually had a very strong season again last year. Somehow really wasn't in the topic of Sixth Man of the Year a year ago. I don't understand why. He had a phenomenal season for himself throughout the regular season. Very efficient, plays within his role. I think he's consistently improved defensively, which that never factors into the Sixth Man of the Year award, although I do think it's important, especially with how essential it is for pretty much everyone in your top 8 rotation to be able to hold water defensively. It's not like Naz Reid's a great defender either, so don't get me wrong, but he's definitely improved year in, year out from where he was as a rookie coming in out of LSU as an undrafted free agent to where he is now. It's been a night and day difference, honestly. He's still not an elite defender, still not a great defender, but he's at least been serviceable night in, night out, and obviously you're getting a ton of offensive production with him. And then my kind of sleeper dark horse, someone who, honestly, I couldn't even really find odds on him for the Sixth Man of the Year award, that is TJ McConnell. I think with Benedict Mathurin having more of a featured role, probably slotting into the starting lineup for the Indiana Pacers this year with Tyrese Haliburton out, you're of course going to see Andrew Nembhard in a more featured role. But who did Rick Carlisle really lean on in moments throughout the playoffs with Haliburton off the floor? It was TJ McConnell. He was the engine that ran that backup Pacers unit to a very high level. And yes, they did lose Miles Turner. Yes, this Pacers team does look quite a bit different, but still with Pascal Siakam, with Benedict Mathurin taking on a bigger role, Andrew Nembhard being a featured player, I think TJ McConnell kind of slots in as a very safe player off the bench for them. Obi Toppin, of course, is going to be a productive player as well. And I think Carlisle is going to give a pretty hefty load of the offensive responsibility to McConnell to generate offense for them, to drive and kick, kind of probe the middle of the floor like he does so well. Do I think he's going to win the award? I don't know, probably not. It doesn't seem like a great bet just because I'm not sure if the scoring volume is going to fully be there for McConnell, but I do think his impact will be tremendous. Now, if I did know for sure that Pritchard will come off the bench the entire year for Boston, he would be the safe pick for me, but I do think Naz Reid for the Minnesota Timberwolves is the safe bet out of these three guys for the Sixth Man of the Year award this upcoming season. Now we look at the Most Improved Player award. This is one of my favorite awards to talk about, right? Because this is a highly predictive award. You're looking at players who, first of all, have either already kind of broken out and then the media is late to, or you're looking at players who are given new opportunities. So that could be a Benedict Mathurin type of player. Do I have him in this category? You'll see here in a second. My first player I want to talk about is Amen Thompson of the Houston Rockets. I think this is already a breakout star. Amen Thompson's proven to me and to many people around the league what everyone already knows is this kid's going to be super awesome. The issue is the NBA media is usually a little late to it. For the Most Improved Player award, they often do vote for a third-year player. They just never give it to sophomores. They don't give it to guys in their second season. But Amen Thompson going into his third year of his career now, not only with Jalen Green out, Dylan Brooks out, with Kevin Durant in, the Rockets should be a better team. But Amen Thompson is going to be leaned upon more with the ball in his hands just a bit more. Defensively, of course, we know what this guy can do. He's one of the best defensive players in the league. Should be in the conversation for all defense this year. Very likely could end up on the Defensive Player of the Year ballot as well. He definitely should be in that conversation. We'll see how Houston's season plays out. But Amen Thompson's an absolute freak. This is a two-way superstar in the making. Someone who I loved a lot in his draft class. I was very, very high on Amen Thompson. And I think his athleticism, the functionality of it, and the combination of speed, quickness, verticality, and the downhill desire, which I think is constantly improving. I think we're starting to see him kind of leave his mark on the game a little bit more offensively. Rookie season kind of came and went in spurts. Second year really started to assert himself a bit more. I think year 3 is the big jump year for him offensively, and we already know this kid is a superstar on the defensive end of the floor, so I do think he'll be in the conversation here. And then Jalen Johnson, this is another player who has already broken out, but last year his season did get shortened because of injury, and I think, again, the NBA media is typically a little bit behind on some of these younger players. Jalen Johnson in a kind of refined Atlanta Hawks roster with now a stretch big man in Kristaps Porzingis, Onyeka Okongwu assumingly coming off the bench. Jalen Johnson should be such a featured core integral piece of this Atlanta Hawks offense, especially with Trae Young going into a contract year. I think everything points to Atlanta being a team that is highly fascinating this offseason or this upcoming season because, one, they should be way better than they've been. The addition of Nikola Walker, I think, really strengthens their point of attack defense, especially off the bench. They do have Dyson Daniels. This Hawks team is very, very good, and I think Jalen Johnson, of course, is going to be someone who's kind of flirting with 20, 10, and 5 numbers. So in that conversation, if NBA media voting is a little bit delayed and a little bit behind where they honestly should be, I think most people are sleeping on Jalen Johnson at this point in time. Still, I know Hawks fans, diehard NBA fans are going to be well aware of how good this kid is, but I do think a lot of NBA media maybe a little slow to the breakout here on Jalen Johnson. So I do think he could be in the mix this year for Most Improved Player, especially coming off of a season where he was injured a bit, missed some time, and the Hawks have been kind of just a run-of-the-mill, mediocre 500 team year in, year out. If they have a much better year this season, spotlight's going to be on them. Voters are going to want to give awards to the Atlanta Hawks, and I think Jalen Johnson might be the most in line to receive one of those. And then also Scoot Henderson. I talked about how the media typically doesn't give the award to a second-year player, but does want to give it to a third-year player pretty frequently. And Scoot Henderson, I think with everything Portland's done, right, they brought Damian Lillard back. He'll miss the entire year this season. But obviously, Portland, I think, has been taking smart steps long-term to improving their team. They acquired Jrue Holiday, traded out Anthony Simons. There should be more offensive responsibility on the shoulders of Scoot Henderson this year. And I think with the defensive infrastructure, with Toumani Camara, one of the best defensive wings in the entire league, with Donovan Clingan, someone who's an awesome big man who can defend, screen, roll, pass extremely well. And then you're also looking at, the addition of Jrue Holiday, someone who's another impactful defender. The Blazers should actually be pretty good this year. I also think Denny Avdia, another guy who has been a true breakout player this last year, was just tremendous for Portland. The Blazers are kind of on the up and up, and I think if Scoot Henderson takes that step forward this season, Portland could actually be a kind of secret force in the Western Conference a little bit. Not sure if they're really ready to fully compete in the playoffs yet at this point in time. They might be a season or two away from that yet. But I do think a lot hinges on Scoot's development and his production and progression. Every time I've seen this kid play live in person, he impresses me big time. I think the way he moves, the way that he's able to handle the ball, get to certain spots on the floor, and process the game, I do think is a step ahead of what people are giving him credit for. Now, if we see some shooting progression and we see kind of that confidence uptick, which I think is the biggest thing for him, if we get all of that into one season, he could be in this conversation for Most Improved Player. Now, I do think the safe, easy bet here is Jalen Johnson, so that would be my prediction at this point in time. But I'm very, very excited for all three of these guys going into this upcoming season. Clutch Player of the Year award. Again, one of the hardest ones to predict because you're having to look at, okay, who's going to be in a good number of clutch games, who's going to score a lot of clutch points, and then who's going to be efficient in those clutch moments. And again, clutch is such a small sample size, it's very difficult to accurately predict. But one guy who I do think is a very safe bet and who I had on my predictions last year to be a finalist was Anthony Edwards. This most recent season actually led all players in clutch points. So why did he not win the award? Well, Jalen Brunson played in significantly less clutch games and had much better per-game clutch numbers and better clutch efficiency than Anthony Edwards. So that's part of why Jalen Brunson did win the award. But I do think with Anthony Edwards likely in a good number of clutch games again, taking another step forward, which has been a constant thing with Anthony Edwards. Every single year he's gotten so much better, just meaningful progression year in, year out in his NBA career. I think it's very safe to assume him as a finalist again in this Clutch Player of the Year award. Then you're also looking at Nikola Jokic. This is not going to blow anyone away, but I do think with Denver, this roster is better, but they're still going to be in a decent number of close games, a decent number of clutch moments. And Jokic, with how absurd his efficiency is, with how reliable his playmaking is, he's almost impossible to double team because when you do, someone's going to either get a layup or a wide open catch and shoot three because of his IQ and intelligence. But at the same time, if you don't double him, he's probably going to put the ball in the hoop. So he's a real tough cover, real tough challenge, and I think that, especially in clutch time, makes him such an easy bet for Denver to go to, focus on as a focal point for their offense, and then it's a difficult cover for anyone in the NBA. Even some of the best post defenders like an Ivica Zubac still struggles with the Jokic matchup to a pretty obvious extent. So Jokic, very safe bet here to be a finalist for the Clutch Player of the Year award. And then I also put Victor Wembanyama. I do think San Antonio is going to be head and shoulders better than they were last season. And I think Wemby, of course, is going to be the go-to guy. They'll probably spam high ball screens between him and Fox, try and hit him on short rolls, try and hit him on long rolls, lobs. And then also they'll just isolate him, give him the ball in the middle of the floor at the nail, top of the key, maybe on the wing, mid-post area. And they're just going to let him work. And again, talking about tough covers like I did with Nikola Jokic, well, here's the thing with Wembanyama. There's just not a single human being in the NBA that can match up with him physically to any extent. And as his shooting progression continues, as the game slows down a little bit more for him, he is going to continue evolving into this player who is almost impossible to stop. I do think the safe, easy bet here for Clutch Player of the Year is Anthony Edwards. That would be my prediction at this point in time. But watch out for Jokic, and especially watch out for Victor Wembanyama this year. So I do think San Antonio will very heavily lean into him. His first full season for head coach Mitch Johnson. And I think he's going to really rely on and lean to his best player, Victor Wembanyama, night in, night out when the games get close. So watch for that. But I do pick Anthony Edwards for this upcoming season. Now for Coach of the Year. I think there are three very obvious choices for this award. The first one here is Ime Udoka. The Rockets traded one of their worst players who was a high-minute player last year in Jalen Green. They had to include Dillon Brooks in that deal for salary reasons, but they bring in Kevin Durant. The Rockets were second in the West last year, and if you look at their team now, they should be a top two team almost guaranteed in the Western Conference. Their roster is loaded. They have a bunch of guys who play hard, and they have a very great head coach who wins a lot in the regular season and wins well in the playoffs too in Ime Udoka. So expect him to be a Coach of the Year finalist for sure. I would be completely shocked if he isn't, to be honest with you. And then Jamahl Mosley. Orlando went out and acquired Desmond Bane. Now, do I love the overall long-term direction of this team, given the fact that they just gave a long-term rookie max extension to Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, and now have Desmond Bane making over $40 million a year? I think that they're going to run into some long-term problems with the amount of draft capital that they gave up to accomplish this, and the sheer amount of money committed to three of those guys. And you factor in Jalen Suggs' contract. Listen, all four of those guys are very good players. I think Orlando's going to be very good. Do I love the long-term direction? Not as much. But in the short term, do I think this team's going to win and win a lot? I do. I think Orlando's going to be very good this year. It would not shock me if they were a top 2 or 3 seed in the Eastern Conference this upcoming season. They're going to have a tremendous team defense again this year. No shocks there. Very safe bet to be a top 5 defense in the NBA year in, year out, like I said last year. Like I said the year before that, and I'm saying again this year, Orlando's defense is going to be tremendous. That's one of the best calling cards for Jamahl Mosley as his teams are able to guard, defend. He gets buy-in from the star players to participate and defend on that side of the ball as well. I think Bane's going to be an additive addition to that factor as well, including his ability to stretch the floor. Orlando's going to win a lot of games. Jamahl Mosley's going to be in that finalist conversation. And then kind of a dark horse here, Quin Snyder. I do think Quin Snyder, at this point in time, I talked about Atlanta tremendously improving their team. We'll see how the defense plays out. Unlike Udoka and unlike Jamahl Mosley, Quin Snyder's never been able to build good team defenses, and I still do have concerns about that in Atlanta. Well, yes, they have a lot of talent. I'm not sure about Porzingis being able to anchor a team for 82 games in the regular season. I'm not certain about Trae Young being able to be a great participant defensively. He has been much more active the last couple of seasons defensively, and I do think that's been a little under-discussed nationally by the media, but I do think Quin Snyder, offensively, one of the best creative coaches in the entire league. A lot of really good play calls, a lot of really good play designs, and with that, generates really easy offense when you have a point guard like Trae Young who can make almost any pass in the world, one of the most creative players in the league, period, and you have one of the most creative coaches. So Atlanta, Orlando, I think are going to be two of the biggest risers this year in terms of win total, and that's going to help them. Now my pick for the award is going to be Jamahl Mosley. I do think he will win Coach of the Year. I think a lot of people are already having that expectation for Houston, that they're going to be great, and Udoka maybe doesn't get as much credit for that because they have Kevin Durant, they have Alperen Şengün, whereas you look at Orlando, very young team, Houston is as well, but there's no Kevin Durant on Orlando's roster. They have Desmond Bane, right? But no one's looking at Orlando and saying, oh my gosh, they have 2 top 15 players in the world. But I do think they're kind of in that conversation, right? Banchero's a very great player. Franz Wagner's a very great player. Desmond Bane's awesome. Orlando's going to be really good. I do think that they're going to be somewhat of a surprise factor. Now, smart people, smart NBA people, especially know Orlando's going to be good. But I do think it will surprise some media voters. And I do think Jamahl Mosley will win Coach of the Year this upcoming season. Which now leads us to Executive of the Year. First one I want to talk about here is Rafael Stone. Of course, for similar reasons we talked about with Ime Udoka. The Rockets are going to win a lot of games. They're going to be a high seed in the Western Conference. And there is that high-profile move, bringing in Kevin Durant in a Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks trade. There's going to be a lot of attention on Houston, and I do think Rafael Stone will deserve a lot of credit as a possible Executive of the Year candidate. Overall, if you look at the totality of moves, he drafted Amen Thompson, drafted Tari Eason, drafted Jabari Smith Jr., traded for Kevin Durant, drafted Alperen Şengün after trading up for him on draft night. Rafael Stone's built this entire team, right? Every single player on the roster has come from a Rafael Stone decision, basically. Brought in Clint Capella, acquired Steven Adams via trade. This Rockets team is so good. They're extremely deep and have a lot of talent, size. They've added shooting, and they're going to be a pretty good force to be reckoned with. So credit to Rafael Stone for building this. He should definitely be in that finalist conversation for Executive of the Year. Then Onsi Saleh, the brand new GM of the Atlanta Hawks, he got busy in his first offseason. A lot of discussion here about the Hawks in this video, but for good reason, right? Bring in Porzingis. You find a way to get Nickeil Alexander-Walker on a big-time contract, which I love for the Atlanta Hawks. And then you also look around the league in general, and some of the teams in the East are taking some steps back, right? Boston, we're not sure what they're going to be. Indiana's dealing with some injuries, most predominantly to Tyrese Halliburton, their best player. So I think the Hawks, again, as they tick up in the win column, there's going to be a lot of credit given to Onsi Saleh for that. He's going to be in the driver's seat here, potentially for Executive of the Year, depending on how many wins the Hawks get this season. And then kind of a dark horse candidate for me, Mike Dunleavy Jr. of the Golden State Warriors, one of the sleepers for this award. Now, I wouldn't strongly consider him for it, but if the Warriors kind of continue the run they went on post-deadline last year, where they just won a ton of games consecutively, big, long win streaks, stretches where they win 8 out of 10 games or 7 out of 10 games throughout the majority of the year, you're looking at a team that could win 50-plus games, and all of a sudden people are looking at Mike Dunleavy Jr. and saying, hey, acquiring Jimmy Butler and giving him that big extension was genius. It put Steph Curry and Draymond Green back in a position to maybe compete in the playoffs for one more finals run. We'll see what happens. Now, I don't think Mike Dunleavy Jr. will win the award. If I had to bet, I would say it's going to be Rafael Stone who gets the award for finishing with one of the top seeds in the Western Conference with the Houston Rockets. I do think Şengün's going to have a huge year for the Rockets, and I think in general, Houston's just so well positioned, it's hard to bet against Rafael Stone with this award. And that leads to our final award here, Rookie of the Year. By the way, leave your predictions down in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Very easily, this will be the winner of the award, Cooper Flagg. As long as he is relatively healthy, plays a good number of games this season, he's going to be flirting with 26-6. This is going to be a high-volume, high-impact player. He's going to score a ton, he's going to assist a ton, he's going to rebound a ton, and he'll perform well in the stocks department, and I do think he'll be relatively efficient. I do have concerns about his three-point percentage holding weight in his first year, and I am concerned about his rim volume and overall efficiency at the rim as a rookie, just given some of the questions I had about his handle coming out of the draft. And Dallas is kind of a weird spacing context, right? You have Anthony Davis, who's always been a poor jump shooter at best. Then you have two non-shooting bigs in Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford. That kind of clumps up the paint a little bit, but Flagg, not like Doncic, but very good still in this area, is a very good lob passer, very good passer in general. He's going to be able to maximize that spacing to a certain extent, and of course he is so physically dominant too. It's going to be hard for teams to physically match up with Dallas, which is going to put them in a pretty good spot. Then Dylan Harper, he'll be a finalist here. The Spurs are going to give him ample opportunities to grow, develop, play with the ball in his hands a bit, and I do think he's undersold as a prospect coming in as someone who is functional without the ball. Shot very well off of catch and shoot in his lone season with the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Also a very adept cutter when he does it. So I'm hoping that Mitch Johnson can kind of gear his game toward that a little bit more. I think it's going to be a necessity for the Spurs this upcoming season that Harper kind of blends his on-ball talent with some of his off-ball skill as well to kind of build a perfect marriage there with De'Aaron Fox and Stephon Castle in that backcourt. And then lastly, VJ Edgecombe, he'll probably be in the mix. Again, you're looking at players who are going to have long leashes, play a lot of minutes. The Sixers need VJ Edgecombe a lot. They need him to play high minutes. They need him to be productive and good immediately for them to have any chance in the East this upcoming year. So expect him to be a fairly featured player, not so much offensively. It's not like he's going to be getting 18 shot attempts a game, but he will have some impact defensively. And then also his cutting, his athleticism, and his downhill play should at least be solid pieces around both Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid when Embiid's actually on the floor. Again, leave your predictions down in the comment section below. Thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate you guys big time. And be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content as well. Thank you all so much. Really do appreciate you. And we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.